We can start with Michigan, Texas if you want to ease into the sadness jacuzzi.
Let's start with Michigan, Texas. Let's get in the flow of this show before we really unearth all the demons here.
Yeah, let's dip a toe.
31-12 was the final of this game, Dan.
Yeah.
We made a prediction on the Thursday show that I think we came to a weird agreement on. We didn't plan it out. 23-13 was our final score. And almost immediately we got comments on YouTube from around the Verballerhood, Michigan fans chiming in saying, that's really disrespecting the defending champs.
Yeah.
And I guess in hindsight, they almost made it to 13, Dan, but 31-12 was your final score.
Opted for 2 in that moment, to be clear. So they were an extra point away from 13. Story was Texas, though. To me, it was, but continue.
Well, that's where I wanted to go next. What was the story for you? Because I feel like it was Texas as well. I don't want to dunk on Michigan here. That's not the point of this.
Right. So would you like me to talk about Texas?
Yes, I would.
They're good at college football. Texas is good. If you are a Texas fan, you should be doing the motion that people do in the crowd when they're trying to quiet their own home crowd because they're a little bit too loud when their own team is on offense. Like, yeah, I know. It's really exciting, but calm down. It's week 2. I know. I feel the same way too. Well, let's just keep it down because bad things can still happen. Texas is really good. Quinn Ewers looked very comfortable. He looked like the experienced quarterback that he is. The line handled Michigan's defensive line quite impressively. I came away super impressed with it's Gunnar Helm, the tight end, who has become a new sort of, I guess safety valve's the wrong word because he's like a legit weapon. Texas had a couple of impressive passes down the field, but the story in this game was, I think, the Texas defense, the Texas ability, even withstanding some injuries to running backs, to perform on the ground, timely passing, and just a more complete, better coach team given the experience on this sideline that Michigan does not have as a unit, as a coaching staff, and the ability to take advantage of an obvious weakness, which was Michigan's ability to throw the ball. Davis Warren and that passing game. Texas is just a fully formed team ready to compete on a high level, and I think the most generous thing you can say to a Michigan person in your life is it's a changing time in Ann Arbor, right? It's not rebuilding, but it's reshuffling and figuring out who's who and what systems would be ideal for the players that Michigan has on offense. Because the defense is mostly fully formed, but they just can't do everything. So I'd be bummed out on like a very micro level if I were a Michigan fan. You're still defending national champions. So like just take a couple licks of those wounds. Let's not get too sad if you're a Michigan human, but it doesn't make it any easier in the moment. I get that.
What I found really interesting about this week, and I think the Texas-Michigan game is a really good example of it.
Yeah.
These games that we discussed at the top of our preview show, the Texas-Michigan game, the Tennessee-NC State game, Colorado-Nebraska, like there were a handful of them. Texas State against UTSA, and almost none of them were close. They all ended up being runaway trains to some extent. And I felt that way about this Texas-Michigan game. Everyone had highlighted this one as kind of the showpiece of the weekend, and the lasting impression for me was that it didn't feel close. It didn't feel close. Beyond that first drive when Texas drove the field and Michigan forced them to a field goal and it went wide right, so they didn't score at all.
Right.
In that moment, it was like, okay, maybe we have a game. But beyond that, Texas did not have much trouble moving the football, especially through the air. You're right about Quinn Ewers. I thought he looked very sharp, very comfortable, wasn't sacked at all. He seemed unfazed to be playing in the big house, which is exactly what you want if you're a Texas fan. It's exactly what you want. Yeah. Put your star quarterback in a hostile environment like that and have him perform and just kind of go about his business.
Exactly what you want, by the way, if you are the Fox Network and you turn over your full halftime show to a Texas fan to talk about Texas. Wow, what a decision. I loved that for them, but man, I don't know where to turn. Where am I supposed to go at halftime to hear somebody talk about a game, Ty?
I know.
We've had Matthew McConaughey on the show. He's great. I love his enthusiasm. I'm glad he exists as a Texas fan. Fox turned over their halftime show to him? He's great. Unbelievable.
Michigan, on the flip side, though, you're right. Like, they're not fully formed at this point. They were last year.
Yeah.
They were great last year. And I guess the most optimistic take you could have on the Michigan side is, well, we played a really good team and they made us look bad. Which happens all the time, and you wouldn't be wrong to make that assumption, but that's only true to a degree. This is a far cry from last year's team. They're good on defense. They're not as good. They'll probably end up being fine on offense, but they're not fully formed yet, and they're still trying to figure out who their playmakers are. There aren't a whole lot of guys on offense that really scare you. There just aren't. We're still trying to figure out who they are. So Michigan's going to end up having a fine season by the time all is said and done. I'm not overly surprised by this because I think we saw the writing on the wall a little bit when we did some of our preseason work, but Texas is just at a different place right now. And to go into Michigan and win in convincing fashion in the manner that they did, 31-12, it kind of speaks for itself.
I would say the optimistic Michigan fans' viewpoint is Jaden Davis might get in there and be good at some point this year or soon or something. I think that's actually what's in the minds of a Michigan person watching this game because right? You watched a Notre Dame quarterback. Maybe that was today. I've watched an Oregon quarterback. Maybe it's partially today. We were like, ooh, I don't know if this is an answer here.
Yeah.
And I would imagine Michigan people, for better or worse with Davis Warren, who I don't think was expected to be the next great Michigan quarterback by any stretch, has the starting job. But you watch him and you're just like, this is tough. That's all.